Let's continue exploring the universe within art and the art within Minecraft. I'm your host, OmLedu, and this is the second episode in my New Player's Guide series, where we're going to be talking about everything enchanting and how to gain experience. Mojang makes it really insanely difficult for the new player to gain enchantments or to even gain experience without the use of farms. So I'm going to be trying to go over all the different ways that you can do these things without building some crazy complex farms. But before we talk about experience, we need to talk about the Enchanting Table. So the Enchanting Table needs up to 15 bookshelves within 1 block away from where it's located. The bookshelves can be 1 block above the table, but not 2 blocks above the table. And so there are a variety of patterns that you can build the bookshelves in order to have 15 bookshelves around the Enchanting Table. There also needs to be open air in between the bookshelves and the table, so I like to bury containers and I like to place things on top of the bookshelves that I might need for enchanting. Now when it comes to using the enchantment table, you will need lapis and then an enchantable item. Once you place those two things in there, it will show you the level requirements on the right-hand side. This is how many levels it will require you to have in order to use that enchantment. And then on the left-hand side is how many levels it will cost you to get that enchantment. If the level requirement says 30, that is the maximum enchantment level. That is the best enchantment that you can possibly get out of the table. But if one of the bookshelves are missing or obstructed by something like a torch in between the table and the bookshelves, it will lower the level requirements because the table can't see the 15 bookshelves. But also, these enchantments will be worse than the level 30 enchantment. Now, you should always aim for the level 30 enchantment unless you're looking for something very specific, such as like fortune. So you can actually place torches to block some of the bookshelves in order to refresh some of the enchantments if you're trying to get something very, very specific, again, like fortune. But getting the experience required is very, very challenging. You can either kill mobs or make a mob farm, you can trade with villagers, which might actually be the best route, you can smelt items in a furnace, or you can spend your days fishing. You can even go to the end and just bypass experience altogether, getting your enchanted gear from the end. That's actually what I do, but we won't really be talking about that in this video because this is supposed to be a new player's guide. So throughout this video, we'll be going over the pros and cons for each method, as well as some tips and tricks on how to gain experience using these methods so that you can find the one that fits your needs the best. But with that in mind, let's talk about how you actually use the enchanting table. So again, you will need lapis and an enchantable item. So I like to keep all of my gear and some books and all of my lapis in containers around the table so that it's quick and easy for me to grab them. Each type of enchantable item will only give you the enchantments for that specific item. So books can give you any enchantment, whereas chest plates can only give you enchantments that apply to a chest plate. And then always try to go with the highest level of enchantment, because it can give you other free enchantments. Like we got Protection 4, but then we got Unbreaking 3 for free, just because it was the level 30 enchantment. Whereas if we got a lower level enchantment, it has a less of a chance of giving you extra enchantments, as well as giving you, high levels of those enchantments. It'll usually just give you something crappy, like Bane of Arthropods 1. Now, if you don't see any enchantments that you like, once you enchant something, it will refresh the enchantments for all different types of gear. So if you don't like any of the enchantments, just enchant a stone tool with a level 1 enchantment, and that will refresh the enchantments for everything. And then you can use a grindstone to disenchant the crappy enchantments that you have in order to get a little bit of your experience back. This can be really helpful when you're fishing for something specific like fortune. Again, fortune is the number 1 most important enchantment that you need to find as quickly as you possibly can so that you can get, diamonds and more ore and more everything. And I do like having books because books can give you any potential enchantment, so it is possible if you can't get fortune on your pickaxe that you can get fortune from a book, but books will give you some random enchantments as well, so sometimes they won't be the best idea. But what I would recommend is grab all of the different types of gear and some books and just start fishing through. Put each one into a table to see what it will give you, and then once you've looked at all of the potential enchantments, get the one that's the best. So like in this case, we got Depth Strider 3 on these boots, and it also gave us Feather Falling, Protection, and Unbreaking. That is spectacular. Those boots are almost perfect just off of one enchantment. So always go for the level 30 enchantments. It may be really expensive, but it's totally worth it. I mean, we got nearly perfect boots and a nearly perfect chest plate off of just 2 enchantments. But now we need to talk about the Anvil. This is what you use in order to merge enchanted items together so that their enchantments merge together, or how you add enchanted books to gear. But whether you're merging enchanted gear together or you're adding enchantments to gear using the books, you simply place the two items into the two slots and it will show you what you will get out of it. So like here, we put two sharpness 4 books together, which gave us a sharpness 5 book. And now we can add that book and all of the other ones to this sword so that we eventually end up with a sword that has tons of good enchantments. Now, this is really, really important. There is one hidden feature to anvils that is not very explained anywhere. And that is every time you merge an item on an anvil, that item will gain a multiplier. And so every time you merge the same item on an anvil, the enchantment cost will get really, really expensive really quickly. Now, if you're in survival, it won't actually allow you to enchant over the cost of 40. And so if you're trying to get a perfect set of gear, you need to keep the cost under 40. Which there is a method for you to do this. And it's actually fairly simple, but a lot of times, when you're first starting off, you just want to take the same enchanted piece of gear and just add stuff to it. But that is not the case. Basically, any item can only be merged 6 different times on an anvil before it's always too expensive to merge again. So what you want to do is merge items that have been merged the same number of times. And then also, when merging books, the cost can be different depending on what order you put the books in, so just always be sure to flip the books around just to see what the enchantment cost actually is for merging those books. You don't want to pay more for no reason. But anyway, so this sword has been merged 1 time, and this book has been merged 1 time. So these are perfect to merge together because they've both been merged 1 single time. The output item will take the highest multiplier from either item and then add 1 to that number. So if you had a sword that had been merged 4 times and you added a book that had never been merged with anything, the sword would still end up being merged 5 times in regards to its multiplier. And so since our sword has been merged 2 times, we need a book that has also been merged 2 times. Now since we don't have 4 books, it's totally fine that we just merge the mending book onto the looting one and call it good. Now we will end up with a sword that is much, much cheaper than if we did 1 book at a time, just throwing it on the sword one after another. And this mainly applies to the sword and the boots since they have so many different enchantments, but this also just helps you keep experience requirements low for anything. Just try to merge items that have been merged a similar number of times, especially if you're having to merge, 2 looting 2 books together to make a looting 3, well, that's 1 merge right there, so that makes it more expensive. And this works the same for all items. They all gain the same multipliers, whether you're merging swords together or whether you're adding books to a sword. But either way, this is going to take you a bunch of experience. So now let's go over how you can actually get enough experience in order to do these things. So there are basically 4 different ways for you to gain experience easily without needing to build a farm. You can build a mob farm to gain experience, but maybe you're watching this video because you don't want to build something as complicated as that. We also have trading with villagers, or using a furnace to smelt a bunch of items, or fishing, and then of course again we have going to the end, which we won't be talking about, but it's just nice to know that that is a thing. The first thing we're going to be talking about though is the easiest, and that is just smelting items in a furnace. You can make a wall of furnaces like you see here. Now this isn't going to be the best way to gain experience, but the nice thing about this is that you can do this in your base without really having to do a whole lot. I also recommend having a lava station like this. It is kind of expensive getting the buckets and the cauldrons, but once you have it, you won't have to spend any resources in fueling your furnaces. You will just generate lava really quickly, which will fuel all of your furnaces. And then just fill the furnaces up with items, whether it's stone or cobblestone or sand or netherrack or even potatoes. Potatoes would actually probably be your best bet, but we'll be going over that in a minute. And so right there, just off of those furnaces, we gained a couple of levels. Now to gain experience from a furnace, you actually need to pull the items out of the furnace. So you may or may not have seen automated furnaces that use hoppers and things like that, but those won't gain you experience. You need to actually pull the items out of the furnace, which is why we just built a wall of furnaces. Now, potatoes, for some reason, give you a good amount of experience, and they're easy to farm. You can just have a giant potato farm and then smelt them into baked potatoes, and you'll actually gain a really good amount of experience. I mean, from that row, we gained 5 levels. We went from level 9 to level 14. And so this method definitely works, and the best part about it is you can do it in the safety of your base, so you don't have to risk losing the levels that you're gaining. And there are just so many smeltable items, you'll never have to go far in order to get the resources to do this. Especially with things like potatoes, you can just grow those in your base. Now, if you're not sure how to build the automated lava generator, I will link a video here on the screen for you to check out. It is titled Stop Using Coal, and it will give you some tips and tricks on alternative fuel sources. So once you get your fuel source situated and start cooking more potatoes than any fast food restaurant ever, you will have enough experience in order to get those enchantments. And again, the best part is you can do this all at your base. Now, the second thing I would recommend using to get experience is villagers. Now messing with villagers is kind of a headache sometimes, but I will show you a very easy way to get this done. Now, your bread and butter is going to be the farmer villagers, at least for experience. They will buy, some random vegetable, as well as pumpkins and melons, all of which will give you a decent amount of experience and is very easy to farm. You can also check out my farming tips and tricks video, which I will pop up here on the screen as well. But just trading 2 stacks of carrots to this villager will get me a decent amount of experience. I was at level 15 whenever I started this, and now I'm at level 16, just for 2 stacks of carrots. And the best part is you will gain other things while you're gaining experience. If you're trading to farmers, you'll be getting emeralds, which you can then trade to other people in order to get really cool stuff. And once you have a safe place for your villagers to live in, you can expand it infinitely, basically. You can have all of the different occupations. And so librarians are also great at giving you experience, and they even give you enchanted books. For experience, they will buy paper for emeralds, and paper is just sugarcane. You can make an absolutely gigantic sugarcane farm and get all of the paper in the world. And the best thing about farming sugarcane is there are super easy ways to do it that don't require any sort of effort whatsoever. But then you also have like armorers and weaponsmiths and toolsmiths, and they will just straight up sell you diamond gear. So a lot of times what I will do, especially when I was, new to the game, is I will make a bunch of farmers, a bunch of librarians, and then some armorers and toolsmiths and weaponsmiths. That way I never really have to spend my diamonds getting gear. And I can get the experience trading with the librarians and the farmers, and then use the emeralds I gain from that buying diamond gear for free. Now, I will say that Mojang absolutely hates us, and they are nerfing the crap out of villagers, especially librarians. So, it's not going to be your end-all be-all, but it's still really nice and easy to get experience and some basic stuff. You can get a handful of enchantments and, your diamond gear and experience, of course. Really, to this day, I still use villagers to fix my gear when I need tons of experience really fast. Once you have, ways to farm all of the resources, like carrots and paper, it becomes really easy to just run in and grab a ton of experience from the villagers. And again, the best part is you actually gain stuff from it. You're not just losing materials in order to, gain experience. You're gaining emeralds, which you can use to buy other things. Which that's just totally awesome. I mean, I just went from level 16 to level 19 just giving these librarians some paper. But even though librarians are good, farmers are even better at gaining experience because they will buy a vegetable and pumpkins and melons. You can farm all 3 of those things and just get an absolute ton of experience trading with them. But, to start off building a villager trader thing, you will need to find you a village. You can also cure a zombie villager, but that might be a little complicated for the new player. But just look around and look for a village. Once you find one though, the very first thing you need to do is trap some villagers in their home. If you don't do this, odds are that they will get killed by zombies, while you're just kind of hanging out in the area. If you're having trouble getting them to stay in their homes, you can break all of the workstations that are not inside of a house and move them into a house. That way the villagers will go inside the house when they want to work, and you can just throw some dirt in front of the door in order to trap them in safe and sound. You can also just wait for the villagers to go to bed. They will all go indoors to their beds whenever night approaches. Then you can trap them in safe and sound. And after you've trapped some villagers so that they're safe, you can start building them a house. You basically just want to build a really big room that's big enough to house all of the beds and workstations that you will need for all of your villagers. And really, this is just to keep them safe so that they don't get killed by zombies. But once you've finished building them a safe house to live in, you can start moving them inside. Now again, you can just place the workstations on the inside of the building, and they will try to go in there automatically. If you're having trouble doing this, you can go around breaking all of the beds and all of the workstations in the village and moving them inside of that room. But once you've moved all of the workstations and beds into your safe house, the villagers will just naturally want to go in there. So it should just be as easy as poking a hole in the wall and letting them go in there on their own. Except that, villagers are never easy because they're not very smart. Like this villager thinks that the door is on the roof, and he just, I don't even know. He's trying to get to his workstation, but he's on the roof. So there are other tricks to moving villagers if they won't cooperate. You can just place down a boat and put the villager in it. And then you can use a lead and kind of pull them along and drag them to the inside of the building. This is definitely doable. They can't get out of the boat once you put them in there, so you can just drag them wherever you're trying to get them, and it will all be okay. Just keep in mind that a boat is kind of wide, so it will need at least a 2-block gap for you to pull it to the inside. And also, you can get leads from the wandering trader. If you kill his llamas, they will drop a lead. So all of this is very easy to get at the beginning of the game. Now, just keep in mind that your villagers are going to try to escape once you poke a hole in your safe house wall. Like that little one just ran away and he won't come back. So what I would recommend is before poking a hole in the wall, is you just build a temporary enclosure. That way they can't escape, even if they get out of the hole that you made. So pull the boat up to the side of the wall and then build a wall around the boat before you knock a hole in the wall to pull it in. And one of the nicest things about villagers that actually makes this very, very easy is that you only need to transport 2. You only need 2 villagers in order to make as many as you could possibly want. And that is because you can breed them. All they require is food and beds. So you can just throw food at them and they will automatically pick it up, and they will even automatically share it if they have a bunch in their inventory. I forget exactly how much food it costs per baby. I want to say it's like 16 carrots or something like that, or 16 potatoes, but any of the food in the game will work. You just throw the food at them, and they will pick it up, and then they will start breeding as long as there are beds in the area. So you will need to fill this building up with as many beds as you want villagers. So if you want 20 villagers, you will need 20 beds. But it really is as simple as that, building a giant room full of beds, having 2 villagers, and throwing some food at them. Now there are a few things to be aware when it comes to the entrance. So villagers used to be able to open iron doors, but I haven't actually seen them open the iron door on this one. But they can't open trapdoors, nor can they open fence gates. So, hello, Piggy. Building some sort of entrance where the villagers can't escape, but you can come and go as you please, is an important part. So use like trapdoors or fence gates or even ladders. And I would also recommend maybe building a little entrance area so that if they do manage to get out, they're still kind of trapped somewhat in the building. But they can open doors. Now another thing I would recommend is build the floor out of leaves. Now the reason that you want to build the floor out of leaves is it prevents all sorts of mob spawning. So like if you accidentally trigger a raid, if you get bad omen and go to your village, it will start spawning these crazy, horrendous mobs. But if you build the floor out of leaves, all of your villagers should be okay because the raid mobs cannot spawn on leaves. And then you can start throwing down all the workstations that you want to trade with. It is as easy as that. Now these zombies are really annoying me. I hear them growling and I haven't turned down my mob settings yet. Y'all are not invited to this party. Go away. That is one thing about villages is that the mobs will constantly try to pathfind to the villagers. They know that they're there and they will just, butt their heads into the wall growling at you, trying to get inside. But that's all there really is to it. One last thing to note is that if you're having problems of any kind, just make sure that there are no beds and no workstations anywhere outside of your safe house. Just go around the entire area and remove any of the workstations or any of the beds. Now, beds aren't as important because villagers don't need to sleep, but workstations are very important. Villagers need to work at their workstation every day in order to reset their trades. So if there's a workstation on the outside of your safe house and the villager can't work, he will never reset his trades, and that will be very, very sad. So just build a place to keep them safe and keep them working, and then you'll be able to get all the experience and all of the trades and all the goodies from the villagers. And if you're not sure how to get leaves without Silk Touch, you can use shears in order to harvest leaves. Luckily, it's super duper fast and will give you tons of leaves in no time, and shears are super cheap. And if you're having trouble finding villagers, you can always cure a zombie villager and turn him into a normal villager, just by throwing a splash potion of weakness at him and then feeding him a golden apple. Once you do this, you just wait, and eventually he will be cured and turned back into a regular villager. And zombie villagers can spawn literally anywhere, so you can dig a dark hole under your base and wait for a zombie villager to spawn there, and then trap him in and cure him. And the best part is that they will be forever grateful that you cured them, so their trades will be lower. But Mojang doesn't want us to have nice things, so they are nerfing this feature as well. They are nerfing villagers all around. Luckily though, they will still be useful for gaining experience and gaining some new starting gear and stuff like that. So I would still highly recommend for new people to start playing around with villagers. Now, if messing with villagers just isn't your style and you don't like the smelting method, you can always kill mobs. Now, killing mobs by hand is going to be very, very slow and very dangerous. So there are several different farms that you can make, some of which are AFK and others of which are just easy, simpler ways for you to do it. One of the simplest ways you can do this is by finding a mob spawner. Now in mine shafts, there are usually a bunch of different mob spawners, so if you come across one of these, you will come across some mob spawners as well. Now mob spawners won't give you very good rates, either for farm drops or for killing them, but one nice thing about them is that you can make a little area by digging out some space around the spawner, and then building you a little safe kind of barricade on one side, and then you can just attract the mobs to your location and kill them safely. Now there are a ton of tutorials on how to make AFK mob spawner farms that are all super duper easy. One nice thing about mob spawner farms is they are much simpler to make than your standard mob farm. I haven't actually tutorialed one of these out, but if you would like me to, I would be more than happy to help you out. Just let me know in the comments and I will do my best to get it done. The basic mechanics behind mob spawners is that they will only spawn mobs when the player is within 16 blocks from the spawner, and they will spawn mobs within 4 blocks of the spawner. So basically, if you just kind of dig out a 4-block area around the spawner, and then you stand like 6 blocks away from it, then the mobs will spawn and you'll be able to kill them. So you can make a simple, manual one very easily just by digging around the spawner a little bit, building you a little barricade, and going to town. But sadly, killing mobs just does not give you very much experience at all. And it's super dangerous and always runs the risk of death, and you would lose all of your experience if that happened. So for those reasons, I would recommend for the new player to just avoid mobs altogether until you're ready to follow a tutorial to make a really good automated mob farm. Which brings us to our final method of gaining experience as a new player, and that is fishing. Now fishing is very, very interesting. You don't gain a whole lot of experience from fishing, but you do gain a bunch of interesting items, including enchanted books. You can even get mending from fishing, which we will talk about here in a minute. But, fishing is very, very slow. Some people find it relaxing and really enjoy it, but I am not one of those people. But the nicest thing is that you can build an AFK fisher really, really easily. It is one of the easiest farms to build. I mean, it's so cheap, you can build it on like day one. In fact, when I used to start Minecraft, this is the first thing I would build in any world. I would build one of these and then just go AFK, gaining books and enchantments and levels. But you will need to download an auto clicker in order to use this farm. Because if you just hold down the mine button, it will be too fast in order to actually operate the farm. So you need an auto clicker to slow things down. Luckily, there are auto clickers for console, for mobile, and for PC. I will include the auto clicker that I use on PC in the video description, but for mobile and for console, I would just check the App Store. I know they exist, but I don't know exactly what they're called or anything like that. But the loot that you get from auto fishing is very, diverse. You know, you get perfect bows, you get enchanted books with random enchantments, you get food and name tags and saddles, you know, all sorts of interesting items. You know, so it's really nice to just build one of these, get an auto clicker, and then just spend a few hours, you know, just fishing away while you do other stuff in real life. You know, because again, you can get mending from this farm, which otherwise the only way to get mending is from villagers. You know, mending is one of those things that, you know, just shows that Mojang hates us, especially the new player, is that you really need mending to fix your gear, but you can't get mending from an enchantment table. Basically, the only ways to get mending are with the AFK Fisher, or like a raid farm, you know, or a villager. And then with the recent nerfs to villagers, it's going to be even harder for the new player to get mending. You have to go to a swamp and get a villager from the swamp in order to get mending. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, but that's another rant for another day. You know, now I will say that me personally, I skip all of this altogether and I try to speedrun the end because the end has all the enchanted gear that you could ever need. You know, and also the end has enchanted iron gear, which is completely useless if you wait until you're fully set up. You know, but if you go to the end on day one, that iron gear will actually help you out. You know, you can actually use that iron gear at the very beginning of the game and still have some decent enchantments. So for our next episode, it's going to be about the alternate dimensions. You know, getting to the nether, getting to the end, you know, bypassing the dragon if you don't want to fight him or you just want to get gear and leave. You know, all of that good stuff we'll talk about in the next episode. You know, personally, I love going to the end on, you know, as early as I possibly can, just like naked and screaming. You know, that way, if I die, I didn't lose anything, you know, because I just started the game anyway. You know, and if I don't die, I end up with all this useful iron gear, you know, and diamond gear to make perfect sets later. You know, now one thing that I will say about end raiding at the very beginning is that you will still need an end chest if you don't want to fight the dragon. Now, if you do fight the dragon, kill it, then you can return home through the portal. You know, but if you bypass the dragon, you'll have to make an end chest, you know, in the overworld before you can actually get your stuff back. You know, but luckily in the end, there's end chests everywhere. You know, so you can just throw all of the loot you get into an end chest that you find in the cities, and then just make you an end chest back in the overworld, and pull all of your stuff out from another dimension. Plus, it's always nice to get wings as early as you can so that you can fly around and explore your world. But that's all we got for this video. We'll talk more about the end in the next episode, so be sure to tune in then. If you liked this episode, don't forget to like, favorite, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. It helps out the channel and the video, and it makes me super duper happy. You know, a big shout out to all of my supporters and all of my subscribers. It is because of you that I can keep making these videos and why my channel is growing every single day. So I really appreciate all of you and all of your support. You are all totally awesome. As always, if you have any requests or questions, simply talk to me down in the comments and I will do my best to help you out. You know, I just try to make these videos to help people out, so if there's anything specific that I can help you with, just let me know and I will do my best. You can also check the video description for a link to my Discord. You can join that Minecraft community to share pictures of your builds, look for players to play with, find worlds to play in, you know, really anything Minecraft related that you would like to do, just join the Discord and talk to me there. But that's all we got, so until next time, I've been your host, OmLedu, hopefully teaching you a Minecraft trick or two, and reminding you, as always, don't forget to have fun. Bye bye!